Hey, Chris.
Hello again, everyone. I am Chris Shearer, and this is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Wednesday, May 26, 2021. Robert Hardy and Justin Ritzler with us. Justin, it's great to have you back. You missed a good one last week with Paul Schwartz, but you were out covering stuff, which is just as important. So it's good to have you back, though.
Hey, we go from having a great sports writer on last week to an even better one back this week.
Okay.
High praise. Thanks.
That is very high praise. Paul's pretty good. So, yeah, Justin does a great job. You got it.
Well, he's certainly a hell of a lot better than that occasional columnist that we have, whatever his name is.
Oh, we're going to start with that, aren't we? Yes. Yeah. An award-winning occasional sports columnist today. All right, so let's get right to it. We're going to talk about baseball. Yeah, look at look at that. Yeah, well, sorry, I'm not in my award trophy room, whatever you want to call it, as you have. So we're going to talk baseball, specifically the unwritten rules of baseball, why baseball has become an unwatchable mess to some people, and we'll get right to it. So last couple of weeks, there's been all this talk. Tony La Russa, the old school manager of the Chicago White Sox, and his unwritten rules. You don't swing at 3-0 and you're up by like double-digit runs, and a position player is pitching. And look, I get the unwritten rules, and I will say that some of these unwritten rules need to be not written, just gone. Okay, I mean, we don't need. It's not the same game as it was 30 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever. It's a different game, different type of player. I'm all for sportsmanship, no doubt about that. I don't like showboating in some aspects if you're pushing your opponent's face in it, so to speak. But nothing wrong with bat flipping or celebrating, whatever. That's fine. I get it. It's the 2020s. No problem. But I will say this, though. Baseball has become, seriously, almost unwatchable. There are times I just watch these games and I shake my head. It's like everybody's trying to hit home runs. Strikeouts are up. We've already had 6 no-hitters, and we're not even to Memorial Day yet, okay? And the crazy thing about those no-hitters is it's 3 teams have been no-hit twice already. It's crazy. So Robert in our agenda wants to know if we could change one thing about baseball to maybe fix it. What would that one thing would be? And for me, it would be getting rid of all this gobbledygook of WAR, WAP, whip, launch angles, trajectories, whatever. Okay, look, I remember the movie Bull Durham. Okay, from the late '80s, and Bull Durham, there was a simple mantra. You throw the ball, you catch the ball, you hit the ball. That's it. This whole thing would just, we got to hit the ball as hard as we can. And we've got to have the ball go as high in the air as it can go. And we've got to throw as hard as we can and everything. And I mean, this is why baseball, the games are just, I won't say they're garbage, but they're just not as fun as they used to be. The game is different. Robert, I shared a quote with you from Don Mattingly, the manager of the Miami Marlins, who was probably one of my all-time favorite baseball players. I grew up in the '80s thinking Don Mattingly was the best player in Major League Baseball, and for most of the decade he was. Okay, he knows. He said the last 10 to 15 years, since all the analytics stuff has been coming up, the game has changed, and it's not the same game, and it's not as good as it was before. So you want to call me the old man, get off my lawn type guy, go ahead. I'll wear that crown gladly and proudly, because I think baseball, unfortunately, it has become a mess, and they just need to get back to the basics, not all this WAR, WAP, whip stuff, and just play basic baseball. All right, Robert, go ahead. I know you're anxiously waiting.
Well, first of all, WAR, whip. I mean, these are statistics that are measured. Wins above replacement. I mean, that is, yes, it helps assess like the truly great players in the game, but it has really no bearing on statistics. I think what you're looking for, Chris, is launch angle and exit velocity which
whatever.
again are measurements. And yes, I do think that, those obviously play a much bigger role in the game than they did, when they were first introduced, but I'm not so sure it's a bad thing necessarily. I think it's really how some of those things are applied to players who already have a certain skill set. So why fix what's not broken? That's where I think that there are mistakes made by front offices. I don't have any problem with that being applied, but I think that that's where you see a lot of the problems with baseball is they try to make a lot of these players something that they're not. But in a lot of cases, the game has evolved from the time when you were growing up, Chris, in the dead ball era to now. The game has changed a little bit. If I could change one thing though about the game, it has nothing to do with, old stooges whining about analytics or anything like that. It has to do with making it more marketable, because you have these stars, Shohei Ohtani, Ritz's new boy with the Angels, Mike Trout, Ritz's ex-boy with the Angels. Guys like that, maybe they don't play for the best teams, but they're great talents and they're bringing attention to the game, or at least they should be. What's MLB doing to market those players? And this was an issue. I remember, we talked about this, I think, on a video a couple of years ago about Trout, that basically the MLB was saying, like, it's his fault, essentially, that he's not marketing himself more, when any other league that would have a big star of his caliber would be pushing him to the masses. I think that that's really the biggest thing about baseball, is that with marketing, they just don't do a great job. You see some of the primetime games that they push out there. I mean, who wants to see these bums play? Some of these poor teams. You want to see the teams with the exciting players. The Angels, despite not having a great place in the standings right now, they have the star power. I didn't mention my ex-boy Anthony Rendon, former National, also on that team. But you look at a team like the Blue Jays that has some young star power. You look at some of the other teams, Juan Soto with the Nationals. These are guys that you really need to boost in a big way. And I think that this is where MLB has failed, quite frankly. The product on the field, you say it's unwatchable, Chris. You rarely watch it anyway. What are you whining about? Look, there's a lot of games to be played, all this other stuff. But I think the biggest thing is, you need to market your stars better, and you need to, draw in a younger crowd. This extends really past MLB. I think, one of the things that's going to hurt baseball a lot is eliminating the short season and rookie league teams, because that, brings young players into the game, out of college and things. So that's where I think baseball needs to start. I have no problem with the no-hitters. I do think it's comical because it does highlight some of the poor teams and the poor front offices out there. But overall, it's a pretty good product. It just needs to be promoted better.
Justin?
Well, Chris going after the analytics crowd is about as predictable as the Packers losing an NFC championship game. I'm going to channel my inner Joe Biden here. Listen, here's the deal. All right. Baseball has always been a numbers game. Now, the numbers that people choose to look at now are a little different than they used to be. We focus more on WAR, and WHIP is not really an analytical stat, Chris. That's been around for decades. People have looked at that. It's simple. It's how many walks and hits does a batter or a pitcher allow, per at bat or per inning, whatever. So that's not something new. That's not too hard to figure out. Baseball's problem all stems from the quality of the pitching. Pitching is too good, and all the problems can be solved by simply making life more difficult on pitchers. And I think that starts with moving the mound back. Because, you look at when baseball was at its peak, 70s, 80s, and you had these great hitters who didn't rely on hitting home runs to score runs. that they were happy to put the ball in play, and there's a lot of action on the base paths, and that's kind of what made baseball exciting. But pitchers are so good these days that it's incredibly difficult to string together 2-3 hits in an inning to score runs. So the fact that everybody seems to throw 97, 98 miles an hour, hitters have to adjust. And if their best way to score runs is simply swinging for the fences every time, that's what they're going to do. The quality of pitchers is what's dictating the way baseball is being played, not analytics. I'm sorry to say, Chris, that's not where it comes from. Analytics are just the product of what we're seeing on the field. That's how statistics are. They're just a way to judge what we're seeing on the field. But I don't think, not saying that managers or whatever don't apply that in their thinking sometimes. I mean, the Rays cost themselves a World Series game last year because of that. But it's pretty far down on my list of things that are ruining baseball. I still think baseball is a good product. I've had a lot of fun despite my Angels kind of stinking this year, watching baseball, watching all the young stars. You mentioned Ohtani. I'm looking at Vlad Guerrero Jr. I mean, he's lighting it up this year for the Blue Jays. He's a really fun player. I think you're seeing a lot of fun young personalities come out in the game. But hey, you make life more difficult on pitchers, that's going to solve a lot of problems. And just a quick word on Tony La Russa and this unwritten rules of baseball. The only unwritten rules that matter are don't intentionally try to hurt guys. Don't be throwing at guys' heads for retaliation purposes. That's all I really care about. As far as everything else, listen, they're big boys. They're professionals. They can handle it. If you don't want players swinging at 3-0 pitches with a position player on the mound, then don't fall behind by 10 runs and decide to save your bullpen by throwing a position player on the mound. I'm sorry, Tony La Russa, but that's kind of the way the game is going. Teams don't want to waste their good bullpen arms in a game they can't win. So you are the one that needs to adjust, not your star rookie player who is one of the best stories in baseball this year. And you want to talk about disrespecting the game, Tony La Russa, maybe you should clean up your act off the field, because that is disrespectful more so than anything your rookie batter's doing.
Who's hound?
Robert giving him the heave-ho. All right, we're going to switch gears. We're going to move on to the National Hockey League. It's the Stanley Cup playoff going on right now. We've already had some teams advance, like Winnipeg. The Jets eliminated the Oilers earlier this week. Okay. And the NHL is doing things differently this year because of the pandemic. There's an all-Canadian division. That's why we have as I said to Justin, to me, the best uniform matchup in all sports right now, the Canadians and the Maple Leafs. Sartorial speaking, that is a classic uni matchup. But anyways, the question is who do you think is going to win it all? And I've said this 100 times already. Okay. I was an Islanders fan back in the 80s, those great teams, Mike Bossy and, Nystrom and Kenny Morrow and all those guys. Great, 4 straight Stanley Cups. But I got to root for my Islanders. I mean, they're one, I think they're what? They're 2, is it 2-2 or 3-1?
3-2.
3-2 against the Penguins. There we go. Well, excuse me, I didn't know the exact number. So I like the Islanders. I'd like to see the Maple Leafs too. I like to see teams that have never won it or have not won it in a long time get there. Now I know that Robert, you might have another team in mind, and I know Justin definitely has another team in mind. And I didn't really touch a lot on the Western Conference, but I think the Islanders are capable of getting to the Cup and maybe winning. I think that they're a very good team. They've got Barry Trotz, who won the Cup with the Capitals a few years ago. So they have a veteran coach who knows how to get it done. And, I think they're taking it to the Penguins right now. And I think they can definitely close it out in 6. And I think they can win the Cup. So, all right, Robert, go ahead. Your thoughts on hockey.
I give your Islanders credit, Chris. They've certainly handled the Penguins well, but that's going to be a tough matchup if they do get past the Penguins against the Bruins, who rolled through the Capitals. I was surprised. That was one of the series that people thought maybe goes 6 or 7. Bruins win in 5. When I look around, I think Colorado would be the easy pick. They plowed through the Blues, made easy work of the Blues, actually, with that sweep. But it's tough to sleep on the Tampa Bay Lightning, coming in as the defending champions. Yeah, they're a 3 seed. Yeah, they still have some work to do. They're up on the Panthers right now, 3-2. That's been, a tighter series and, on paper. But, they could easily make it out of that. The Carolina Panthers going up against the Predators. That series is a little bit closer than I think people expected. And then, then after that, they have to go through the Bruins and likely Islanders winner. So, I like them getting at least to the Cup and potentially winning it, depending on how it plays out on the other side of the bracket. So, I am really high on the Lightning. They got a lot of talent there. I think that, some injuries definitely hurt them in the regular season. I believe, Kucherov obviously was a big loss for them, but, getting a lot of those guys back, being able to get healthy again, around playoff time is huge. And, I like where they're positioned. I know that on paper they're a 3 seed. That's not sexy for a lot of people, but, that's a team with obviously playoff experience, Stanley Cup winning experience. It'd be impressive to see them win back to back.
Justin, I know who you like, but go ahead and say it for the public here.
I don't like any of these teams. My team's been irrelevant since January. So and my new team won't be relevant until October. So listen, I'm trying to stop myself from thinking of this in terms of a typical Eastern Western conference, because that's just not how the format works. You could have, I think the way it sets up is, and Robert, you correct me if I'm wrong, but like we could have a situation where 2 traditional Eastern Conference teams could play in the Stanley Cup Finals. So you can't think in those terms, but I don't see any reason why, Chris, your Islanders, if we're willing to go that far and call them your team, I don't see why they can't win another round and make it to what we normally consider the conference finals, and maybe even go farther than that, because Barry Trotz is a great coach. They're difficult to play against. They've kind of made a star-studded Penguins team not look all that star-studded. So who knows? It wouldn't shock me one bit to see them go a couple more rounds here. I think the Avalanche are hands down the team to beat here. They wiped the floor with St. Louis, outscored them 20-7 in the first round. I think it's got to be the only series so far that didn't have a single overtime game. The Avalanche just look poised to roll through this thing. They're going to face a tough task next round, assuming they play Vegas. But they're hands down my pick right now. Maple Leafs, we'll see. They lost John Tavares, who suffered a scary head injury. But maybe this is the year where they kind of figure out everything that's befallen them in the playoffs before. We'll see. I tell you, not only, Chris, you mentioned the uni matchup, that Habs Maple Leafs matchup, not having fans in the arenas in Canada, unfortunately Canada's well behind us in fighting this pandemic. That's one of the most disappointing things. Like, it's been awesome to see all these American arenas kind of fill up with fans again and getting that raucous atmosphere of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then there's Canada, which, it's almost like they're back in the bubble. Quick word on Connor McDavid. If you haven't already, check out Stephen A's segment on ESPN that went up the last couple days, where he, in his words, says, "Let's do that hockey." And then he called out the Oilers for falling apart with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I'm glad that he pronounced their names correctly. And anyone who thinks that Stephen A talking about hockey is bad for the sport, all due respect, you're a moron. It's great for the sport.
Well, it's not a coincidence that ESPN is getting hockey back, because I'll tell you, when I go to ESPN.com and check hockey scores versus the NBA, then there's MLB, then there's like all these European soccer leagues I have no clue about. Then there's the WNBA. I mean, it's like I expect to see cricket before I see the NHL scores, to be honest with you. And then finally, there's the NHL. So I'd like to think with ESPN getting the NHL back, that'll move them to the front page of the website. So, all right.
Yeah, just real quick to respond to Ritz's something of a question, I guess. Just to clear up the playoff format. So after the division winners, because the top 4 from each division are playing in this bracket. After that, the seeding will be based on regular season point totals. So the bracket I mentioned, it could change up a little bit based on who wins here. So if you have a Tampa Bay with a Colorado or Islanders in there, it's gonna look different probably than it looks on paper right now.
All right. Our last topic on Sunday. Yes, one for the ARP crowd. Phil Mickelson, 50 years, 11 months old. His birthday is the day after mine next month. Won the PGA Championship, the oldest winner of a major in golf history. Julius Boros was the previous record holder. He was 48 years old when he won the 1968 PGA Championship. I looked that one up, by the way, although I knew it was Julius Boros. I wasn't sure what term that he had won. But anyways, lefty, I mean, he started off a little slow on the front 9 on Thursday, kicked butt on the back 9 on after that first round. And realistically, after that, he never really had that meltdown that took him out of contention. I mean, look, he had a bad hole here or there, but he always was able to regroup and focus and come back and hold on. And what a performance. I mean, look, I was glued to the television this past weekend watching Phil Mickelson. It's great for the game of golf. I can't help it. I mean, I know there's a lot of good young stars in golf today, and I do enjoy watching some of them. But it's great to see one for the old guard, Phil Mickelson, who won his first PGA event as a junior at Arizona State back in 1991, to do this. And I guess today it was announced that we're going to have another one of those celebrity golf matches with Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau and of course Justin's boy Aaron Rodgers and of course Tom Brady. So this is going to be happening, I think, on July 6th. It's going to be fun to watch. But one thing I said to Justin yesterday is we need in the U.S. Open for the first 2 rounds, we need DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka grouped together in the first 2 rounds because it would be must-see, must-watch TV. I would pay money. If ESPN Plus has got that, I will pay the $6 to watch those rounds, okay? Because it'll be nothing short of spectacular. And this is what golf needs, okay? With Phil, obviously, in his declining years, with Tiger Woods' health in question, whether he's ever going to be competitive again, golf needs a rivalry to get you glued to the TV. It had it with Palmer and Nicklaus back in the 60s. It had it with Nicklaus and Watson in the 70s and the 80s. It had it with Phil and Tiger in the 2000s, okay? We need DeChambeau and Koepka going at each other. This is what golf needs, man. It needs like a little bit of a pro wrestling angle to it. You need a good guy. You need a bad guy. You need a storyline. I'm telling you, this is what golf needs. It's got to happen. I'm fired up, man. This is good stuff. This is what makes sports great. Rivalries. We need this. This is what is so cool about it. So hopefully someone at the USGA is watching this and says, you know something? That's a good idea. Let's do this. So hopefully in about 3 weeks when we have the US Open, we will see that DeChambeau Koepka pairing in the first round. Justin, go ahead. Your thoughts on lefty winning the PGA.
Well, concerning Mickelson, I mean, obviously it's the highlight of his career. You know, Chris, you talk about rivalries, and you mentioned Mickelson versus Tiger, and I think that's maybe saying it was a forced rivalry is a bit strong, but like Tiger was in such a class of his own in his heyday that as good of a golfer as Phil Mickelson is, and even as he started to win some majors, I don't think it's fair to call that a rivalry as much as Tiger was just so far above and beyond everyone else over the last 25 years. It's kind of unfair to Phil to kind of put him on that pedestal with Tiger. But if you're looking at his kind of legacy, like this is one thing that he's most likely going to have over Tiger is, hey, I'm the oldest guy to ever win a major. You know, you got to 40 years old or whatever, and you had obviously he had some personal issues, but your body broke down. And I don't think Tiger Woods is coming back and winning major tournaments at 50 years old. Phil Mickelson did. So that's kind of the one thing when you look in his, trophy case, you'll see a little banner that says oldest guy ever to win a major. It's kind of like maybe not something you want to be proud of always, like, oh, I'm old, congratulations for being old, but good for him. It was great to watch, especially on Sunday, watching him battle Koepka, who I'm a big fan of. I do want to say quick, the 18th green there, the crowds surrounding the final hole, the fact that Mickelson and later Koepka, they had to literally fight through crowds to take their last couple putts. I don't have the answer to how to solve that, but I can tell you that can't happen. You can't have Brooks Koepka coming off a surgically repaired knee, fighting through crowds and people running into his leg. Like, they're fortunate that something more serious didn't happen to him or Mickelson. And then concerning the match too, I'll be really curious how this does in ratings because there's no Tiger Woods and there's no Peyton Manning. And I think those two were major draws for people to watch the first time around. As much as I love Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he has quite the support or fandom that Peyton Manning does from just kind of the average sports fan. I will say Tom Brady, he's been talking a lot of smack on social media today, and I'm just glad that those two are finally going to face off in an individual sport because Aaron Rodgers, since both their careers started, has always been the superior individual athlete compared to Tom Brady, who was by far the worst golfer at the last match. I'm glad that Rodgers finally will get to show the world, hey, this guy may be a better or more fortunate quarterback than me. He's not a better athlete. I can't wait to see that play out.
Robert.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the three things that Ritz talked about there. First, the Mickelson win. I saw some people, some sports minds say that this wasn't his greatest win, that it was the 04 Masters. And here's my problem with that. He was known up until that win in 04 as, the best golfer never to win a major. So for him to win in 04, that came later than expected. Yes, it was a great achievement for him, obviously significant in his career, but let's not kid ourselves. This guy was a great golfer who should have won a major before that. This win on Sunday is by far his best accomplishment because you're going up against a field of golfers, Brooks Koepka, DeChambeau, McIlroy, names like this that, have major wins. In DeChambeau's case, just one. But, these guys that, have proven themselves as, some of the game's best players to this point. And Mickelson, he's 50 years old, going on 51. He really hasn't shown us much lately. He's missed a bunch of cuts. He's started to play on the Champions Tour. He really hasn't been in contention in any tournament he's played, and he comes out and wins a major. By far his most impressive accomplishment, just given the fact of where he is in his career and the fact that, in a way, it kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he's definitely on the, down slope of his career. So to have a moment like this is definitely a highlight and his greatest achievement by far. Regarding the crowds, look, that's a TV production. We all know it is. I would love to hear an explanation for why that was done at that time, because something that's important about that, and I was questioning this at the time, this was before both golfers took their second shots, if you remember. There was a crowd that had gathered behind where, because they started letting them on the fairway as Mickelson and Koepka were walking up to their balls, Mickelson was in the rough, but Koepka, I believe, was on the fairway. So this was before their second shots. At that point, Mickelson had a 2-shot lead. He messes up that hole and bogeys, and Koepka makes a birdie, and he was in prime position to do so. we have a playoff. So I thought that was just a bizarre decision to make. And I don't know who made it. I don't think anyone's come clean about it. But in that situation was really a bad decision to make because the tournament wasn't over yet. And quite frankly, it shouldn't have happened at all. I get that it made a nice scene. It made for some nice photos, but that tournament was still very much undecided until they reached the green, until Phil made that shot that put him within 15 feet or so, easily 2 putts to steal the win. You can't do that. I get why they did it when Tiger won the Tour Championship. I think at that point he had it pretty locked up that he was going to win the tournament. So, it was his comeback thing. But with this, I think you had to be careful there, especially with Koepka, not really being in top physical shape to handle stuff like that. And finally, the match.
Go ahead.
And just finally, the match. I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be, compelling TV. You've got Aaron Rodgers and his situation. I'm sure Tom Brady's going to be chirping him about, that lousy front office that he has. At least I hope so. We know Peyton Manning would do that. Then the golf involved here. You got Mickelson and DeChambeau. That could make for some great TV. These two guys, the old bomber and the new bomber. Now, to your point, Chris, about pro wrestling, I have a proposal. A special guest rules official, Brooks Koepka, coming out there, and DeChambeau, when he's whining about some stick in the rough, Koepka can come up to him and say, F you, buddy, take your shot and shut your mouth. I would love to see that happen. If there's any justice in the world, if there's any TV producer that needs this free tip, I would take it. You got to get Koepka in the mix somehow. It would just be an awesome thing.
I'm just going to touch upon the scene on the 18th hole real quickly at the PGA. Look, it was obvious there was security. Okay, there was a good number of security, uniform security guards on the 18th hole, but there weren't enough. And I don't know how many you needed. I mean, look, there were thousands of people. Okay, hundreds, if not thousands of people, and there's no way 10 or 20 security guards are going to be enough to keep a few hundred people off a golf course and surrounding these guys. So I think what's going to happen is PGA or whatever tournament is going to say, look, if you come on, if you go inside the ropes or you go in a place within a certain range of the golfer, you're going to be kicked out. You're going to lose your credential, your ticket, whatever. If it's the last round, you're not going to be able to buy no. And I don't know. I mean, look, this is what happens. What happened here was rare. I mean, we do see things like this at the Open Championship in the UK, and at the end of July, we see this occasionally, but there it's planned, it's expected, and I think the fans know not to get too close to the players. This was a little bit different. I wonder how much alcohol might have had involved in this. A lot of people might have been drinking all day, and obviously when you drink, you're going to do some stupid things. So I think there was a combination of things here that came into play that caused this, and thankfully nobody got hurt and none of the players were affected and didn't affect the outcome of the match. So, all right. Anything else you guys want to add? All righty. We're going to wrap it up then, folks. Appreciate you joining us. Have a great weekend. Have a safe Memorial Day, and we'll see you next week.